This is Asheesh Advani, and welcome to JA Live. I'm so excited to have you with us, and I'm even more excited to have as our guest, Julie Carrier. Julie, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this program.
Awesome. The technology works. You know, when we did a test, the technology did not work, and I stumbled into negative thinking land. So to have you here as a youth development expert who can help both me be positive during this crisis when I'm doing crazy things like scrambling to engage my 15-year-old twin sons for how to spend time during dinner to engage them. Even my small challenges, which are nowhere close to the challenges that other people have, makes me feel like I could use some real help with positive thinking right now. So I'm so happy to have you on the show.
Well, Ashish, thank you so much. And here's the reality. There's a lot of emotions going on right now. There's fear, there's anger, there's frustration. And the goal here is to realize that all of those feelings are valid and important. This time is unprecedented. We don't have a template on how to feel right now. So the goal with positivity is one to acknowledge that one of the things that's normal are these other quote unquote negative emotions in this uncertain time.
But every time I try to be my positive self with my wife, she just rolls her eyes at me. And every time I try to be positive with my teenage boys, not only do they roll their eyes, they literally walk out of the room. My in-laws have moved in because they're in their mid-80s and we want to keep them safe. So I'm like the positive person in our household, but it doesn't always work. So maybe you
Yeah.
can give me some advice or give everyone some advice on how to deal with that.
Yeah, the reality is there's no one answer that fits all. However, I think the biggest thing we need to understand is that in this time, positive thinking or positivity really doesn't mean we have to be happy all the time. Positivity, especially in terms of a national crisis or international crisis, is this idea that we're anchored to hope, that we're anchored to optimism, that we understand, even though we're in really hard times right now, that this time is temporary and that better days are ahead. And if that is true, how do we want to show up in this space?
Well, Julie, I mean, you were a guest speaker, and I would say one of the most popular guest speakers who had so many people come up to you afterwards at our Global Leadership Conference for JA Worldwide. So for those who are listening who don't know what JA is, Junior Achievement, we're about 100 years old, just over 100 years old. And during our centennial, we actually had Julie as our guest speaker at the Global Leadership Conference in Berlin. This was in November of last year. And I've got to tell you that, as a professional who helps deliver learning experiences for young people, to have you on stage motivate us like we motivate young people to be positive and to be able to get through difficult times and to have self-belief and self-efficacy was so wonderful for us to have you there. I'd love for you to bring some of that great energy to the people who are listening here. So anything
Yeah.
you can share with us about how to deal with this crisis would be really helpful.
Yes, thank you for sharing. And by the way, I loved being a part of your Global Staff Leadership Conference, to have 80 countries represented from all over the world that represented millions of young people impacted because of JA and your global mission. I love JA, and I'm honored to be here to share, not just with JA, but also with the world, a little bit about how awesome you guys are too. So we'll circle back to that. But related to positivity, a lot of people don't talk about it like this, but positivity is a math problem. So if people are thinking, gosh, how do I become more positive during this time so I can be more productive, more hopeful? We have to recognize that in this time of crisis, positivity boils down to a math problem. I actually like to call it the tin can principle. So I have two cans here. So as you know, Asheesh, my background's in applied neuroscience, so I know how our brains remember. So we're going to use some fun visuals today. Basically, both of these cans represent different people. And depending on what's inside of the can represents how this person is going to deal with pressure and how this person is going to be able to face adversity in a sense, with a sense of positivity. So you see the two cans here?
I do.
They look the same. So we're going to try to squeeze this can, right? I'm going to actually, have you ever tried to squeeze a can? It's actually really hard. So this person is not caving under pressure. It doesn't matter if I literally step on this can, it's not going to break. However, this can looks the same, but there's a lot of different things going on with this one. This one, I'm going to try to squeeze it. You ready?
Yeah.
Which one caved under pressure?
Yeah. So this is, I mean, just it's amazing, right? The can that caved. So you know, I sometimes feel like either can. So tell me what I should be feeling like.
Yes. So the difference between someone who's able to bring more positivity, hope, and optimism in this situation versus someone who feels overwhelmed, who really caves under the stress. And again, this can be different people on different days. It depends on how filled up that person is. So this is literally, it's a practice in energy management. Research shows there's a very high correlation to how well we're taking care of ourselves, how restored and resilient we are, versus someone who keeps pouring out, saying, I'm going to get that one next thing done. I'm going to look at more and more news media. Things that drain people ultimately make them more susceptible to caving under the pressure and the stress of the situation, and make them less productive, less happy, less optimistic. So in this math problem, it's really important to understand that every single day, as a parent, as a teacher, as a leader, we have literally a responsibility to take physical, emotional, and social care of ourselves. Because if we don't, we are not able to operate with that sense of optimism and positivity that the other people in our lives look up to us for or need us to present. So I highly recommend this. This sounds like a little strange. This is not just be positive. This is have a scientific approach to being able to show up as that person you need to be. And that includes having a restore list. So this might sound silly, but my husband and I, we created a restoration list on what we individually need to do to show up as someone who's more positive, hopeful, and optimistic. And for me, my list that I have on the refrigerator is very different than Bill's list. So my list includes having a green juice in the morning, getting on my bicycle and doing an extrovert bike ride. Bill's list, my husband, he's an introvert. He likes to read quietly for an hour every day. These are not luxury items. Self-care and emotional care, these are necessities.
So Julie, I know Bill. Bill's fantastic. And you have different personalities, but they obviously complement each other so well. You know, I've been authentic with you about how my wife rolls her eyes at me when I am positive. My sense is Bill does not roll his eyes at you when you're positive. So tell me a little bit, if I could, in this live interview about your marital dynamic and how you guys are able to be the yin and yang and both be super, I guess, resilient at this time. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so it's interesting. In order, I think, for us to be able to show up as our best selves, that positive, more optimistic, hopeful self, we realize that we need to be able to have this space to feel all of our emotions. So I don't literally walk around like skipping around the house being like, everyone be happy. No, that's not realistic. I understand that for Bill, that's not the space that he needs. It's also not helpful for me. So we actually give ourselves permission to feel frustrated or angry, but we do so in a way where that is contained. So for example, every day I give myself 15 minutes of permission to feel frustrated. And that's a space where Bill can vent his frustration, share his anger. We know other families are doing this too. Literally a small slice of the day where everyone can be as negative and frustrated and angry as they want. But at the end of that 15 minutes, guess what? That stop button is pushed, people stand back up, they dust themselves off, and they move on with their day. So having a defined period of time where you give yourself permission to be super negative is actually a really great way to be positive.
Wow, I love that idea. I think I'll give my wife 30 minutes, not 15, but in general, the idea is a very good one. And and occasionally I might need 60, depending on how things have gone at work. But it's a very concrete piece of advice. I will tell you, I've got a friend right now who's working in the medical field. He works at a hospital in Boston, and we have drink evenings and catch up. And I actually feel kind of guilty complaining about what's happening in my life, given what's happening in his life. And even across JA, we've got staff in over 100 countries. And some countries are really, really going through a difficult time right now. Schools are closed. Philanthropy is much more challenging right now. And other countries have pivoted to digital really quickly and are thriving and are using this opportunity to, kind of deliver our programs to students. Even in China, in Wuhan, we've delivered our programs to kids in Wuhan. So my question is, with these different things happening in the world, how should we reconcile the guilt we feel when we're frustrated about small things, when others are doing such more meaningful work for the world and are also frustrated?
It's a really important question, because everyone is struggling right now to different and varying degrees. Some people are really struggling even to find food to feed their families. So it is very humbling, and it does, for many people, lead to feelings of guilt. Like, why should I be feeling this way when other people are having such a worse time? We, again, need to understand that all of our emotions right now, regardless of our financial situation or our background, all of our emotions are valid. And that it's important to give yourself permission to say, gosh, in the history of the world where I have been in this space, there's been nothing like this before. So you gotta, as I tell young people, you gotta feel your feels, right? Now, the good news is, I always like to say the antidote to those feelings that tend to be heavier or more negative, or even fear, guilt, anxiety, the antidote to those feelings is kindness and generosity. So anytime we start to feel those feelings and we start to say, I acknowledge that these feelings are valid, and you know what is an action that I can take to do something to help others? That is one of the best ways, not only to engage ourselves as adults, but also to engage young people in getting out of that space of heaviness and negativity. Kindness and generosity really is the key. Making masks for other people, helping older people that are shut in their house, even the smallest little thing like putting a Post-it note that's inspirational on a mailbox. It's little things make a huge difference, especially when it comes to our emotions as well.
It's absolutely true. I'll tell you a little story. So last weekend, we decided because I love chicken pot pies. It's one of my weird things. I just love them a lot. And we took these chicken pot pies we bought at a store, and we delivered them to friends' homes, and we put them on the doorstep, and then rang the doorbell or texted them, and then were like, appropriately far away from them as they opened their door. That little thing
Mhm.
brought me so much happiness, and it helped me feel positive, which has lasted me, frankly, for a week. That little thing. So I totally get it. It doesn't have to be a big gesture. It can be a small gesture.
No.
So I mean, you have delivered this message to youth, to young girls. In fact, you're the #1 coach selected in the world by Thinkers 50 for young women. So you have the expertise here. Tell us and tell the listeners who are listening in about how you translate this advice specifically for young people, not just parents.
Yes. So, really, for young people, we want them to understand something that's really important. This, while it's hard for us as adults, it's even harder for our young people that haven't, many of whom have not ever had the opportunity to develop some big resilience muscles. So, one of the ways I talk to young people about this is I just have them get a rubber band, and I'm just actually have a hairband right here. And I say, you know what, this is normally the way we live our lives. It's very comfortable. However, right now, we're stretching outside of our comfort zone, and we're having to spend a lot of energy, a lot of effort living in this new space. So everything we do is going to feel harder. The days are going to feel longer. So it's just a way, anything we can do to support young people in seeing things visually is really helpful. I think our young people need to understand that they don't feel like getting on a schedule. They may not feel like doing their schoolwork, but you know what? Now it's more important than ever to dust yourself off, to step into this space and have a new routine and to show up. Because the kids that aren't, or the kids that don't have parents that are encouraging them to do that, they're the ones that are suffering the greatest.
And how about for parents of younger kids? Because I'm parents. I've got 2 teen boys. To me, I feel that they can be self-sufficient. I know when they're frustrated, they're going to come and tell me. But there's other situations, or at least I hope they are. Maybe I'm clueless. It's actually entirely possible they're not telling me, frankly. They're teenage boys. But leave that issue aside. How about for parents of younger kids? They're distracted with what they have to do at work and with balancing family, and of course spouse, and and taking care of maybe extended family as well who's moved in. I mean, maybe you can give them some advice on how to not only maintain a positive mindset, but how to just frankly balance all these things. What advice do you have for them?
My number one thing to share with parents right now is you are doing awesome. You are doing amazing. It is unprecedented the amount of stress and responsibilities that are being put on parents right now. And so many parents feel like they're not just failing at one thing, but that they're failing at everything. Quite frankly, given everything going on and that parents are having to step up and be not only mom or dad, they're having to be a teacher, they're having to be the house cleaner, they're having to be the chef, they're having to be the strategic management, official for everything going on. Every parent deserves a gold medal as far as I'm concerned right now. And I think the key for parents to understand is that in this situation, there is no balance. There is no way to do it all. And so that's where values and priorities step into play. There are going to be things that have to fall by the sidelines. And maybe it's a 5-foot high pile of laundry. That's okay. So I would just say, parents, you're doing an amazing job. I would make sure that you look at media, I guess I should say social media, where so many parents are talking about all the fun things that they're doing and every day is a different theme. I find there's a lot of parents that think, oh, I'm horrible. I didn't have cupcake day with my family. You know what? That's okay. You're doing the best you can, and that's what matters. So that would be my number one thing for parents. And the second thing would just be get your whole family on a routine every single day. Routines make kids feel safe. And when kids have routines, they act out less than when they don't.
That's great advice. Actually, even hearing you say that makes me think I'm failing as a parent because I'm not giving my kids enough of a routine. But I've heard your first comment, which is, even though I'm failing as a parent, it's okay. It's okay. And frankly, that alone has made this entire conversation worthwhile. That feeling alone, Julie. But I'm going to ask you, which I ask all of my guests. I ask them to talk about their most embarrassing moments, to pick one of the most embarrassing moments to share with their listeners, and to talk about maybe what you learned from it, because we all have these cringe-worthy moments. So I'm going to ask you that in a few more minutes. I think we've got a few more minutes here. So I want you to think about that while maybe I ask you the next question, which is, you had a chance to speak to. Oh, good. I'm glad. So you had a chance to speak to JA leaders from over 80 countries, and you had a chance to really motivate us and to make us not only realize the value of our work, but to realize the value of the work of all educators everywhere. The people who are listening in here could be any one of JA's 400,000 plus volunteers who deliver our programs in over 100 countries. It could be amongst our alumni. We have over 100 million living alumni. Or they might be JA staff. We have well over 3,000 staff in over 100 countries. I'd love for you to maybe deliver a message to all of those groups who are listening in, both during the crisis and maybe other advice you might give them during this time.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I'd be honored, Asheesh. So I would say right now we are all running a marathon. And I find so many of our families and so many of our youth serving professionals and teachers and educators, they're having to run that marathon at a sprint pace. And that is exhausting. It's draining. It's not even sustainable in the long haul. So I would say to those families, those parents, those educators, those JA staff, the amazing leaders that we have around the world, that you are doing an amazing job. And the best thing that we can do every day is just to show up and be the best that we can on that day. There might be days where it's a crushed can day and we feel like we're burdened by the world. There may be days where we feel like we're invincible, that we can help everybody. And I want you to know that regardless of the type of day that you're having, because you show up day in and day out with a sense of service and a sense of care for others, you do make a tremendous difference. And in fact, Asheesh, do you think we could show that video when we were in Berlin, Germany at your global staff conference? In fact, I would rather everyone on this call hear it from your amazing leaders from around the world. So can we share a special message from JA Worldwide with the world right now?
What a great idea. Let's do it. Let's share it.
Hi, this is Julie Carrier. I'm actually here with JA at their Global Staff Leadership Conference. Give yourselves a big shout out. We have a message for you if you care about helping young people, if you're part of the JA family. We want you to know a very important message, and that is...
Just seeing that again just makes me feel so happy. It was so special. What a moment. So, I guess you've spoken at conferences all over the world. You're one of the world's top keynote speakers. How did speaking to our stakeholders, our group there in Berlin, how did it compare to other speeches you've done? And please be honest, don't just say good things. Be truthful here.
I have to say, seeing that event from last year, one, it makes me miss live events so much. And I'm so grateful to have the space to be able to serve and support with JA now. I think when I think back to that amazing event, the fact you had people there, amazing JA leaders from over 80 countries from around the world, who were all there because they're so passionate and so excited about helping young people and furthering this JA mission to teach young people financial literacy and entrepreneurship and literally workforce readiness skills. I lived on that for months afterwards. I was so excited. And I think what you've done, Asheesh, and what your team has done is you've created literally a global, world-changing organization that impacts millions and millions of kids' lives. So it really was like everyone there had like 10 cups of coffee. There was so much energy in the room. And I think what's beautiful about your organization is people are that enthusiastic and energetic because they love what they do. So it was an honor to be a part of that, to see how amazing JA is in action.
Well, and to have both you and Bill there, and for even us to have some social time to get to know each other was amazing for me. Looks like we have a question from the audience that just popped up. One of the listeners is actually probably because I think when they saw the video and they realized everyone was together and now we're all apart, just because of social distancing. So the question is, how do you help people show up when we are all so far away? Great question. How do you help people show up when we are also, I guess, how do you even connect with people to run an organization or to do your job when we're all so far away? What's your reflection on that?
Well, I think that's also a great question for you too, Asheesh, because you're doing such an amazing job in this unprecedented time. I think that the great news is, as hard as it is to not be physically close and around others, the beauty is technology, we can use it for great good. So the fact you're even having this amazing show and this opportunity to connect with the world, that's great. I will say that, social distancing, depending on where people live, means that you can still like go ride your bike and say hi to people. Smiles, people can actually see a smile, research shows, from across the distance of a football field. So making sure to show up as you're out there in the physical space with a smile, say hi to people, even if you have to shout at them 50 feet away. We need a time of connection. And sometimes that means stepping outside the normal bounds of what's comfortable and saying hello to people you don't even know. So I think it starts with little things like when you're out and about, or bigger things like leveraging technology in a global platform.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Maybe this question was as much for me as it was for you, because I got to say, kind of over communicating at this time when everybody is socially apart matters so much. In fact, this show is just one effort into that, but we are doing so much to make sure that we are connecting with all the people who are important to our organization. And I know, Julie, I'm sure you are doing that with all of your vast network as well. Frankly, I've reconnected with people across both within JA and even old friends who I never would have even spent this much time with, just by virtue of us needing that social connection using Microsoft Teams, which has been great for our organization, or Zoom. So technology helps, but at the end of the day, you've got to make the time to over communicate. So, all right, last question for you. I've already given you now at least 10 minutes to think about it, okay? Most embarrassing moment, or at least one of your most embarrassing moments. And, as you cringe, and hopefully you're cringing even as you think of it, because that's a real embarrassing moment. What did you learn from it? And as you reflect on it, what can you share with people who are listening in?
Yeah, I think there's plenty of embarrassing moments. I think it's funny. Obviously, nobody's perfect, myself included. One of the funniest ones that I can recall was when I was actually giving a speech to quite a large audience, and it was a sit-down dinner. So it was a chicken salad. So I was eating my chicken salad, and then I was announced on stage. And what happened is a piece of chicken actually got stuck in the back of my throat. So as I got ready to start my big opening, I literally started coughing and I couldn't stop. I was standing on stage in front of all these people attempting to say something. Then it would be fine. Every time I tried to say my first word, I would start coughing. Now, this was an ugly cough. Like literally my mascara started running. I had someone run up on stage and give me a bottle of water. That didn't help. Then someone brought me hot tea. I can't believe this. I actually had to leave the stage and run back to my seat. And I started to try to eat some more salad to push the food down. and it worked. So I think when I got back up on stage, I did say, you know what, it's not about unexpected things happening. It's how we choose to respond. And then everyone laughed and I laughed. But it was just a moment where I was reminded that perfection is not required. We just need to show up and do the best we can in the situations that we're facing. And I think while it's not a chicken salad dinner day for many people, what I am saying is we're showing up and things happen we're not expecting. We just kind of got to roll with it and do the best we can.
Well, honestly, that's a great story to end on, because I think right now we're all dealing with the absence of perfection, and we're all having to realize, and thank you for really helping us, acknowledge this on this in this conversation, of how we react to the situation around us affects so much about the way we think, and the way we think about ourselves, and the way even we impact the world around us. So I'm just so grateful. The advice that you're giving us is the same advice that JA gives in our programs to young people. And I know in your speeches around the world to young people and to other groups, to girls and to youth in general, this is a message that you send. So thank you for the work that you do. If you haven't been thanked by anyone today, let me be the first to thank you and to show some gratitude. And of course, thank you for sharing your wisdom with everyone who's been listening in.
Well, and Asheesh, thank you for your incredible leadership of JA during this time and always. You have an incredible global organization that literally is changing millions of kids' lives. So I just want to thank you and JA for your continued amazing work during this time.
All right. Well, to have you as a guest on JA Live has been an honor. So thanks once again, and stay in touch.
Thank you. Bye-bye.